GamingBolt presents 15 most insulting video game spin-offs. A name on the box isn't always going to lead you in the right direction. Sometimes there's a really obvious way to spin off a popular element of a game or series into something completely new that's also natural and really fun. Then there's other times when it's clear that the name on the box is a Trojan horse to get some less than thought through schlock onto shelves for a quick buck. We've got 15 here that we're more than a little upset about still. Did we miss a really insulting one? Let us know in the comment section below. Metal Gear Survive. Alright, picture this. You're head of a game company that had a huge falling out with the former father of your biggest franchises, a legendary series that's famous for political intrigue, deep stories full of subtext with deep commentary on the future of information warfare or how language can destroy culture, all wrapped within a super spy thriller where a solo operative penetrates terrorist cells and saves the world. Now that the creator of this series is gone, what do you do with that name? If you answered, lame co-op zombie survival game, well, Konami already tried that, and nobody bit. Mortal Kombat Special Forces. Released for the PlayStation way back in 2000, Mortal Kombat Special Forces saw the player take control of Jax, wanting to take revenge on Kano for the deaths of his Special Forces team. While it wasn't the first or last title that bafflingly thought that anybody was desperately looking for a deeper story context of a fighting game where a lizard ninja could eat the face of a Van Damme knockoff, it's considered the worst by far. The shallow beat-em-up gameplay and general jank really put off even hardcore series fans. Death by Degrees. In a somewhat similar vein as Mortal Kombat Special Forces, Bandai Namco took Tekken fighter Nina Williams and gave her a poorly conceived solo title where the assassin takes on a mission for the CIA and MI6. Unlike the Tekken Forces modes in past series entries that acted as side games, Death by Degrees doesn't even leverage the popular fighting systems of the Tekken series, asking players instead to work Nina's entire moveset through the manipulation of the analog sticks. Street Fighter 2010: The Final Fight. Street Fighter 2010 was a sci-fi spin-off of the, well, that kind of says it all, doesn't it? A 1v1 fighting game inspiring a sci-fi platform game where Ken has to gather enough energy from enemies to open a portal. It's almost like it was a completely unrelated game that Capcom tried to lamely use the Street Fighter name to appeal to Western players who wouldn't know any better in the 90s. Hey You Pikachu. Riding the Pokemon high of the late 90s, Hey You Pikachu hoped to bring the dreams of interacting and playing with your very own electric mouse monster to life through the Nintendo 64. Upon release, it was quickly realized that this virtual pet game was no Tamagotchi, with a spotty microphone and heavily guided gameplay that made creativity all but impossible. The microphone package was also criticized for being calibrated for really high-pitched voices. Castlevania Judgment. This series is a creature of chaos, and Castlevania has taken many forms over the years. For sure, there were the highs of Symphony of the Night and Super Castlevania 4, but one of the lowest points was the terrible Wii-era cash-in, Castlevania Judgment. It wasn't just the poor character designs, but the forced implementation of those dreaded waggle controls that left the series' fans turning back to the DS for their fix. The worst part is that the series, in the right hands, could do something great with a fighting game. Shadow the Hedgehog. When Sega had fallen from grace and left the console market, so too did the Sonic the Hedgehog series jump from too cool for school to don't come to school on Monday edge. The poorly conceived solo title for Shadow the Hedgehog did so much more wrong than just give an anthropomorphic hedgehog a gun. The mission design, repetitive story structure, and camera all made the game a headache to play. Bomberman Act Zero. The M. Night Shyamalan and Michael Bay reimagining of the cuddly Bomberman series really took the tongue-in-cheek multiplayer hit in a direction that it didn't really need to go. While the gameplay remained mostly unchanged, all of the charm of the cartoon characters playing with high explosives was replaced with a grim story of robots battling gladiator style to allow the final survivor to reach the surface of a decimated Earth. Nobody asked for this gritty reboot of Bomberman. Sonic R. Sonic the Hedgehog is getting surprisingly little time on this list, but lame segue, he also got surprisingly little time to shine on the Sega Saturn as well. When Sega couldn't quite figure out how to bring their Golden Boy to their 32-bit system with a main series game, and they really needed the sales to pick up the flailing Saturn, Sonic R was pumped out. A Sonic racing game should have been a natural fit, but the weird track design, controls, and lack of content generally meant that Sonic fans weren't feeling that sunshine. Link's crossbow training. The storied Legend of Zelda franchise has been around for a long time and represents one of Nintendo's best connections to a core gaming franchise. So when Nintendo thought there weren't enough cheap plastic peripherals for the Wii that didn't really do anything and wanted to sell their own plastic gun shell of a Wii Zapper, what do? Well, they slapped a Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess skin on a super basic arcade shooter, give Link a crossbow, and give the player terminal disappointment. Pokémon Channel. While Hey You Pikachu was something of a letdown due to the technology of the time, there was some room for expansion on the idea that the power of the Nintendo GameCube had the potential to fill. After several years of waiting, however, the closest thing to a spiritual successor to the previously discussed virtual pet game was an even less interactive title where players would be able to watch television with Pikachu. Yay. Metroid Prime Federation Force. Insulting mostly, but not exclusively through timing, Metroid Prime Federation Force was the first time Nintendo had touched the Metroid name in many years, and starving fans were looking for anything relating to Samus following the tremendous disappointment of Metroid Other M on the Wii. Needless to say, the last thing that players were looking for was a chibi co-op shooter for the Nintendo 3DS. Resident Evil Survivor. It's popular knowledge that Capcom lost the plot with Resident Evil somewhere between 4 and 7, but slightly less known is that Capcom was trying to milk the series for all it was worth back on the PS1. Resident Evil Survivor took the series into light gun spin-off territory back in 2000, well before the Chronicles games. While the plotting pace of Resident Evil didn't mesh well with the genre to begin with, the NTSC version saw the removal of light gun compatibility in a game designed for a light gun, just making it even more awkward. Mega Man Soccer. Continuing the Capcom train, Mega Man Soccer was a rather poorly conceived spin-off of the classic Mega Man series into a sports game, a genre with which Capcom had very little experience in. Aside from the novelty of the power shots, the fairly standard soccer game was marred by slowdown and sticky controls uncharacteristic of a Capcom title in the 90s. Hotel Mario. I hope you brought lots of patience. Hotel Mario is the result of Nintendo's poorly considered business dealings during the Super Nintendo era. The legendary screw-up that would give rise to the PlayStation also saw Nintendo grant the rights to some of their characters to Philips, who would put out some infamous CDI games that Nintendo refuses to acknowledge to this day. While the Zelda titles are known for their meme-worthy animation and poor controls, there was at least an adventure to be found there. Hotel Mario, on the other hand, inexplicably has Mario going up and down elevators and closing doors in Bowser's hotels for no observable or explained reason. This terrible remake of elevator action was referred to back in the day in the Wired review as a puzzle game with no puzzles. And that about does it for this video. If you enjoyed what you watched and want to see more from GamingBolt, you can always hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell icon next to it. That way you will never miss any of our videos.